Well, I think it's important to show my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So my About Me is really, it's just a one page. It gives a tiny little background of kind of where I came from, but it also gives all my stats and kind of where I've ranked within the company, within Northeast Florida, the different awards that I've won, like what makes me a little bit better than maybe my competitors.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another Workout Wednesday. Thank you for joining us for another video. For this week, we have a very special guest from our Royal Golf Village office, Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Today we're going to be talking about prepping up home selling proposals and a little bit about listing appointments. We talked about this with Priscilla 2 weeks ago. We missed last week. But before we go into that, I want to learn a little bit more about you. Yeah. So I want to kind of understand more about what your prior experience was before going into real estate, and then just how long you've been in real estate as well.
Okay, so 2004, I got my license in the boom in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. So it was a kind of a tragedy turned triumph. I had an apartment fire years ago in like 2003. Had a lot of real estate friends encouraging me to kind of get in the business. The fire, it actually turned into me buying my first condo. I was like 23. So I got into real estate that way and jumped on a team as a buyer's agent. Did that for about 4 years. Really had a blast. And then the 08, 09, happened and turned everything upside down. So when I wasn't doing real estate, I was doing retail management. So I've always run multi-million-dollar retail stores. I was a district manager. I actually relocated to Texas for a while, running like 8 stores. But real estate was always kind of on the side. Once you have a taste of that and the freedom, it was really kind of it was kind of always the goal to get to.
That was the end point.
Yeah, and so I had a couple, pit stops in between, but ultimately got my license, moved back home to Florida. Florida's home. So once the market crashed, I came back home, kind of gathered myself back up, went back to retail for a little while, got my license here in Florida. About 2016, I think I did that, and just kind of been going at it ever since.
So I remember we have talked before for Takeover Tuesday. I remember you did work in retail. I like that because you're centered around people a lot.
All the time.
It translates so well to real estate because it's just such a people business. And I think it's not talked about enough because we get a lot of, I look at a lot of the agents that come in, and we get a lot of what our major industries are, like healthcare, finance, people that are relocating maybe from military, they're retired, which healthcare is a people business. A lot, you're dealing with a lot of people, but I think retail, especially, you're learning their interests, what's going to
clienteling. I mean, I had to build a clientele within my store and teach that to, 50 people, staff, so, and you're running all different avenues. You've got the back of house, you've got front of house, you've got the sales, you've got the numbers, you've got the upper management. So it's a lot, and it just kind of, transitioned perfectly for me anyways, for real estate.
So I want to hop into talking about home selling proposals and listing appointments. So whenever you're working with a seller, what does your preparation for that listing appointment look like?
Well, I really do 3 things now. It's really, I've gotten it pretty streamlined. I know exactly what I need. So the first is a good CMA. So I put together a report for them. So it comes from a couple different, sectors. I pull from KV Core. I love parts of their CMA. Sometimes I pull from RPR. I pull the one-liners, and I do some CMA work in the MLS. And I just kind of put all that together, what I've, think is important. And I make a little pretty kind of report. And then I do the listing presentation that Berkshire gives us. So I love that. That to me is more informational about us and the company and kind of how we, can benefit them and help them sell. So I do those, and then I do a folder of listing paperwork and kind of my little tchotchkes. I got a magazine and a newsletter, and I put all that together in a pretty little, Jennifer Lawrence real estate bag with a cup and a koozie and a pen and usually some chocolates in the cup, and and then that's kind of what we discuss.
So with that home selling proposal document, I know you said how you customize it to yourself. Is it making it unique experience each time for that client?
So the presentation that Berkshire gives me, the only thing that I added were my own testimonial page and then my own about me page. Yeah. Everything else I think is fantastic. They've streamlined it down. I've been with the company for a while, so I've watched it get better and better and better. So I think they have the best presentation today than we've had in a while. It's a lot smaller. It's a lot easier to kind of convey to the client. But my report is a little bit different. I mean, that one especially is catered to whatever house and kind of what we're working with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about other supplementary resources? What else are you bringing to that listing appointment that could maybe perk a client's ears up about, maybe it might drive that listing appointment home a little bit more?
How do I win?
How do you win that listing?
Essentially, so I'm big on my iPad. I know that sounds silly, but I think things digitally are perfect. Yeah. I pull all of the information from their usually from the MLS on their neighborhood, and I send it to myself in an email, and so that way I can open it up when I'm on the on the iPad with them and show them competition, what the comps are, what's active, so that they can actually see it and see the pictures. Yeah. Because comparison is really important. They have to understand what our competition is, especially in today's market. So, and then the other thing that's kind of won a lot of listings for me lately is the Zillow Showcase. Yeah. As you know, I do that on almost every listing. It's quite costly, I'm not going to lie, but I think that's what the consumer loves. They are Zillow driven.
Absolutely.
And as much as we may not love it, the consumer does. And so we have to take that into consideration when you show them even just a flyer and it says 70% more showings and saves and views. And what I like about it is that it showcases me. Like nobody's buying my leads.
Absolutely.
It's my listing, it's my leads. So it shows me, and I do get buyers from it. I've gotten a couple leads from it for my listings, and people seem to be really impressed by the new Zillow Showcase.
Yeah, so we've loved it. You are a repeat customer. Yeah. Yes, we enjoyed that a lot. What about other marketing options? What else for your marketing are you presenting in a home selling proposal?
Well, I think it's important to show my experience. So my About Me is really, it's just a one page. It gives a tiny little background of kind of where I came from, but it also gives all my stats and kind of where I've ranked within the company, within Northeast Florida, the different awards that I've won, like what makes me a little bit better than maybe my competitor. So, and so to me, that's really important because it's hard for me to sell myself in a conversation. It's really uncomfortable sometimes when I'm in like a full-fledged interview proposal. Those get a little sweaty. But if I have the documentation in front of me and I can say, this is kind of where I've been the last, 20-something years and kind of how I've ranked throughout those years and what I've done, that to me can help me stand out a little bit more.
Absolutely. Now, how are you navigating kind of tougher seller situations? Maybe you're coming into a listing appointment and it's a divorced couple, they're splitting up, or maybe the owner has passed away and you're dealing with relatives that are selling the home, or maybe it's somebody who has a shorter timeline, they're relocating to a different job, or they've gotten different orders from military. How are you?
Yeah, and I've actually got all of those situations currently. So I have a divorce, I have a listing appointment tomorrow, but I've already met with them a few times. Okay. And the challenge is getting them to agree. And so it can be very difficult on price. It can be very difficult on repairs. Yes. Who pays for what, how that gets paid for. So it's really just about being very gentle and empathetic to their situation. I have been in a situation where the husband passed and she was left with everything to deal with and has never paid a bill in her life. Yeah. That took probably a year to get through everything. And I mean, I was sitting on the couch with her while she's in tears and just trying to give her options. You know, my husband helped her move because she had nobody. You know, it's just the human element that we have to remember about our job, and that these are really difficult situations for a lot of people. Even with relocating, I've got multiple relocation listings right now, and they are honestly probably the easiest sellers to work with because they're motivated. They have one goal in mind. Get it going. I mean, I just talked to one of them yesterday. We've been listed a week, and she's like, drop the price. Speed is important. I don't care. So it's like, hallelujah. Yes. Yeah. So listening to them, listening to what's important to them in that situation, and just sitting down with them and having that human element, make a cup of coffee, you know, and just listen to them and figure out what it is that's important to them. I think in any of those situations is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about navigating a conversation about telling a seller what they are responsible for during a selling? So it could be keeping the house clean. You know, everybody's not the most cleanly, or just decluttering. I've heard the horror stories of like where you walk in and it's like a hoarder lives there.
Yeah.
Or just even like keeping you in the loop on stuff.
Yeah, been there, done that too. I've had all of those situations. I had one where I walked in and I was literally stepping over things, and I was like, okay, where do we start? But you just have, again, it's about having that like empathetic side first, because why is their house like that? What's the situation? You know, one was a relocation, and she was a doctor. Her husband was a doctor, and they had 3 kids and literally no time. So I was like, okay, well, we need to get you some help. We need to get you a maid service or some kind of, you know, let's get a moving truck or whatever we can do. So it's about being delicate, being respectful, you know, not judging them, and making them feel comfortable with you helping them. You know, sometimes people don't want help, and they can tend to get a little defensive. And so you have to be, you know, careful with your words. You have to be very thoughtful with how you communicate with people. But I do have a document, and I think there's actually a good one in the listing presentation now where it says like what you have to do, you know, your responsibilities as a seller. And so I'm very honest about that, and I try to ensure, you know, nothing is out, like everything that, you know, you're moving anyways, just pack it up, like start boxing, throw it in the garage, like, you know, let's designate one spot for what we can get rid of so the remainder of the house looks impeccable. So it's just about how you talk to people. It's not necessarily what you say, but how you say it.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree. Final question. Thought this was kind of a fun one. If you could take a singular page of the home selling proposal and that's all you're taking to win the listing, what page is it going to be?
Yeah, honestly, that's a tough one, because I think every client is different in their needs and what's important to them. Yeah. But for my own benefit, I honestly think it's the about me, because everybody knows the basics of selling a home. Normally, you have your first timers and you have those, but the majority of people that we're dealing with have done this once or twice. And so it's really about me, and why am I going to stand out, and what makes me different in a crowd of many, you know? So I know that may sound silly, but maybe that one, and like the one about Berkshire kind of getting the top, you know, listing price or sales price. I know there's one in there that has that graph where it's like showing the different brokerages. So I think that's important, because I'm not here to just slash prices and get your home sold. I want you to get the most for your home. I want to go above and beyond and try to get you. And I always tell people that Berkshire's like the concierge level of real estate, because we do go above and beyond, and we do things that not everybody does. So kind of having my information is important, because I think it helps me kind of, again, like sell myself, I guess, which is kind of hard for me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a great way to wrap it up. You know, I want to thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for asking. No problem.
Fun video. I will put all of Jennifer's social media accounts on screen, so you guys can go check her out, all of her website stuff too. So, she puts out a lot of stuff on social media, a lot, so it's really good. But thank you all again for watching. We will see you next week with our next guest for Workout Wednesday. Take care.